The messenger arrives at dawn with news that will change everything. Your harbor, which seemed so secure yesterday, now faces a storm that threatens to destroy what you've built. In that first minute, as the words sink in, you have a choice that will determine not just your immediate response, but the trajectory of everything that follows. Will you surrender your judgment to the storm, or will you hold fast to the discipline that lives within? Musonius Rufus, the most practical of all Stoic teachers, understood something about bad news that modern psychology is only beginning to grasp. He taught that the first minute after receiving devastating information is not about the news itself, it's about whether you maintain command of your own mind. Like an engineer inspecting an aqueduct after an earthquake, your initial response must be methodical, not emotional. The harbor metaphor reveals everything. When storms rage outside the harbor, the ships inside remain secure, not because the storm isn't real, but because the harbor's structure was built to withstand what nature could unleash. Your mind, properly trained, becomes that harbor. The bad news is the storm, real, destructive, demanding respect, but your judgment, your capacity to think clearly and respond wisely, that remains protected within the walls you've built through daily practice. The first principle: separate the fact from the interpretation. When Musonius received word that Emperor Nero had exiled him from Rome, his immediate response wasn't to rage against injustice or collapse into self-pity. Instead, he distinguished between what had actually occurred, a political decision affecting his location, and what it might mean for his ability to live according to virtue. The exile was a fact, everything else was interpretation, and interpretation remained under his control. In our time, when global challenges test human resilience daily, this separation becomes even more crucial. The news arrives: a diagnosis, a job loss, a relationship ending, a financial crisis. In that first minute, your untrained mind wants to leap immediately to catastrophic interpretation. But the Stoic pause asks, what exactly has happened? What do I actually know? What am I adding through imagination or fear? The second principle: protect your judgment like a sacred trust. Ancient Roman engineers didn't build aqueducts to collapse at the first sign of pressure. They built them to carry water consistently, regardless of weather conditions. Your judgment, your ability to evaluate situations clearly and choose your response, deserves the same engineering precision. Bad news tests the infrastructure of your character. Have you built it to last? Musonius taught his students that judgment is the one thing that remains truly yours, regardless of external circumstances. Others can take your property, damage your reputation, even harm your body. But they cannot force you to surrender your capacity for clear thinking, unless you volunteer to give it up. That first minute after bad news is when most people volunteer. The third principle: remember that your response creates the future more than the news itself. History offers countless examples of individuals who transformed potential disasters into opportunities for growth, service, or moral courage. Not through positive thinking or denial, but through disciplined response to reality. The bad news becomes the raw material from which you build something meaningful. Consider how communities worldwide in 2026 continue demonstrating remarkable coordination and mutual support when facing genuine challenges. The news of crisis becomes the catalyst for unprecedented cooperation and innovation. The initial bad news wasn't the end of the story. Different story. One written by human response rather than external circumstances. The fourth principle: use the structure you've already built. Like water flowing through an aqueduct's careful channels, your response to bad news should flow through the patterns of virtue you've established in calmer times. If you've practiced honesty, let honesty guide your response. If you've developed courage, let courage inform your next action. If you've cultivated justice, let justice shape how you treat others affected by the same news. This is why Stoics emphasize daily practice in small matters. Not because small matters are particularly important, but because they build the infrastructure that supports you when large matters arise. The person who practices patience in traffic jams has a foundation for patience when receiving a devastating diagnosis. The person who practices honesty in comfortable conversations has a foundation for honesty when truth becomes dangerous. The fifth principle: accept that the storm is real while maintaining the harbor's integrity. Stoicism isn't about pretending that bad news isn't actually bad. Cancer is cancer. Financial ruin is financial ruin. Loss is loss. But even genuine disasters cannot touch your capacity to respond with dignity, wisdom, and purpose, unless you allow them to breach the walls of your inner citadel. Musonius spent years in exile on a barren island, not as a philosophical exercise, but as genuine hardship imposed by imperial power. He didn't minimize the difficulty or pretend it was pleasant. Instead, he used the constraints as an opportunity to refine his teaching and deepen his understanding of what makes life meaningful. The external storm was real, but his inner harbor remained secure. The practical application begins now, before the next storm arrives. Train yourself to pause between stimulus and response. Receive news, any news. Count 3 breaths before reacting. Use those breaths to separate fact from interpretation, to remember what remains under your control, to choose your response rather than surrendering to impulse. Build the aqueducts of character in peacetime so they can carry you through war. Practice seeing obstacles as training, minor disappointments as preparation, daily frustrations as opportunities to strengthen the infrastructure of wisdom. The harbor isn't built during the storm. It's built in anticipation of storms that haven't yet arrived. Your first minute after bad news will come, perhaps today, certainly sometime. In that minute, you will choose between panic and discipline, between surrendering judgment and maintaining command, between letting the storm destroy your harbor or proving that you built it well. The Stoics knew that external events have power only over externals. Your judgment, your character, your ability to choose virtue, regardless of circumstances, these remain forever within your citadel, secure against any storm. If this moved you, comment, "The Citadel holds" below. It is our sign that you carry the philosophy with you. Subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.